I'm sure you've heard of the movie Con Air. Well, this is the real one.
Hidden on the grounds of Will Rogers World Airport in Oklahoma City, there's a secret facility no one even knows is there. The passengers walking to their gates would never even look at it twice, because who would expect it to be a secret federal transfer center, a jail that planes pull straight up to? You see, the government runs its own airline to transport inmates across the BOP, aka the Bureau of Prisons. The Marshals call it JPATs, yet anybody inside of the system calls it Con Air. Every single year, almost 265,000 inmates are transferred throughout the country, and almost every single one of them passes through this one building, FTC Oklahoma, aka the Federal Transfer Center, the secret hub of the entire federal prison system. And this is a well-lubricated machine, no pun intended.
Damn!
As you're moved from one holding tank to another, they go through an entire process as they put handcuffs that are attached to a chain around your waist, shackles around your ankles, as they shuffle you down a hallway straight from your cell block on to the plane. Other times, it's a bus to the plane, a van to the plane. But either way, the Marshals are holding their shotguns watching every single move. And that is what this video is going to be about. Not making a video about something that I read online, but something that I've actually lived through. Because I've been to that airport. And today, you're going to experience what that's like.
My name's Brett Booker. I spent 10 years in federal prison for drug trafficking during the early days of the dark web and cryptocurrency. And this is No Bars Booker.
Content warning. This video contains sensitive topics including violence and incarceration. Nothing here glorifies crime or prison life. These are my real life experiences shared to keep you from ever living them. All clips are used under the doctrine of fair use for news reporting and analysis. Some points made in this video are opinions and theories. I am not responsible for third-party information.
This is the very first video on this channel, so if you're into prison and true crime related commentary, hearing stories and perspectives that I believe nobody else is talking about, you're in the right place. Make sure to smash that subscribe button. Some people that are unfamiliar with my story don't know that when I started to make content such as this, they almost sent me back to prison. They almost reprimanded me back into Bureau of Prison custody. Now that I feel like I'm in the safe zone, I almost felt obligated to create this channel and talk about these topics. So let's first talk about my experience with federal prison transport and specifically Con Air. So I was raided by the feds when I was 20 years old, and I was subsequently sentenced to a term of 138 months, aka 11 and a half years. That journey took me between 10 prisons in 8 states. Some is holdover status, which you'll learn more about in this video, other times longer term stays. I was fighting my case at Douglas County Corrections in Omaha, Nebraska. Then I took a bus to the first prison that I was at, Leavenworth, United States Penitentiary Leavenworth in Kansas, the very first federal prison ever built. Once my custody dropped, I took a bus to FTC Oklahoma. Then I took a plane to Indiana, where I stayed at Terre Haute for a little bit. Then I took another bus to Oxford, Wisconsin, stayed there for a little bit, took a bus to Sandstone, Minnesota, where I stayed there for several years. My custody dropped again, so I took a bus back to Oxford, a bus to Indiana, a plane back to Oklahoma, another plane to Victorville in California, and then a bus to Mendota, which was a federal prison camp. Stayed there for a bit, but I did happen to get into some trouble for some cell phones. So after I spent some time in solitary, aka the shoe, the bucket, I took a bus to Victorville. This was during COVID, so I was at Victorville for quite a long period of time. That's why they call it diesel therapy. And then I took a plane to FTC Oklahoma, took another plane to MDC Chicago, which is right downtown. It's the detention facility there. I stayed there for a bit. Then I took a bus to Terre Haute, Indiana, stayed there for a bit, a bus to Oxford, Wisconsin, then another bus to Sandstone, Minnesota, where I finished the remainder of my sentence. So in total, that was 10 institutions in 8 states, starting in Nebraska, then Kansas, Oklahoma, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and California. And I share that with you because a lot of people ask me, why do they move you around so much? Well, I went back to the West Coast because that's where I'm from and that's where I live, and I was doing time out in the Midwest where I originally caught my case. So people ultimately transfer for one of 3 reasons. Number one, you're new to the system, so they got to get you from wherever county jail you are located, wherever you were fighting your case, to your final destination, where Grand Prairie in Texas does the designation and where you need to be sent to. Because unlike state prison, where you actually go to a diagnostic facility, that's not how it works in the feds. They do your classification down in Texas at Grand Prairie, like I just mentioned, and then you don't know necessarily where you're going, but you just have to go through all these stops. Sometimes you're staying there for a day or 2, sometimes you're staying there for weeks or months, and you just kind of hip hop across until you get to where you are designated. So that's when you enter the system. Number 2 is when your custody increases or decreases. So for me, it was mostly custody decreases as soon as I got to the camp, and then my custody increased, so they have to send you to an institution that aligns with your custody score. Because there are certain states that have no federal prisons. There are some states that have no medium or low custody prisons. They may only have a camp. They may only have a low. But if your custody is high or medium, that means that you can't even be in that state because there's not a federal prison in that state for you. And number 3 is when people just don't feel safe to be on the yard anymore. They check in, right? People check in for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're checking in because they ran up some massive drug debt or gambling debt. And instead of getting beat up and smashed off the yard, they decide to go to the officer and tell them, I am not safe. Or if somebody told on a bunch of people they are a rat, or if somebody is a pedophile, they pretty much check in. Now, this is something you don't want to happen to you in the federal prison system because you have something called a jacket. And once your jacket is bad, all these prisons are connected. A lot of people have cell phones, and they will find a way to send word from wherever prison they are at to the prison you are going to, and it may repeat the cycle all over again, right? Because people have, resources out on the street. They have a cell phone. They can even look up on the BOP inmate locator, okay, what prison did he go to? Who do I know that's there? Send word that this person ran up a drug debt, ran up a gambling debt, or that he's no good. He told on a lot of people, and maybe he's an undercover sex offender. That's not why he's in prison, but he has that in his past, so we're going to send that over to our people. And it's crazy because you could be sent to a prison halfway across the country, and these things will catch up with you. Now let's talk about JPATs, Justice Prisoner Aviation Transportation System. This is run by the US Marshals, and this is how they get you through this giant web, this giant system from point A to point B. Because there's one thing about the Justice Department, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, Customs and Immigration, when they need to get you somewhere, they will get you there no matter what. I have been on the plane before and I've seen one person get off, get into a helicopter, and be taken to whatever jail he needed to go to for whatever court date he might have had. I've seen other times one person go on a plane because they needed to get that individual there. One person on a bus, one person on a van. They will get you to where you need to go no matter what. But the thing is, when you're transferring, not everybody's going to the same destination. And you have a idea of the routes, because just like I mentioned to you, when I went from Leavenworth to Sandstone, Minnesota, that was the route. Usually you go to FTC Oklahoma, then you're either going to go to Illinois or Indiana, and you're going to stay there for a few weeks. Then you're going to go to Oxford, then you go to Sandstone. So there's all these routes, and during these routes, we're dropping people off. Some people get off because they're going to Terre Haute. Other people get off because, hey, we were at MDC Chicago. They have a new case that they're fighting. They just got indicted, so we need to drop them off there. So you're just chilling there for a bit, and then when it's time to go to the next destination, which you don't know when or where that's going to be, you get on the next bus, you get on the next plane, and you get to your destination. Now let's talk a little bit about how it works once you're in the system. So let's say that your custody were to drop, or you're in solitary and you have a transfer that's coming up. What they're gonna do is they're gonna wait for the midnight count. Once it's midnight, a guard's gonna pound on your door. Boom, 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 boom. They're gonna say, Booker, roll up, pack up, it's time to go. And you're not leaving until 6 or 7 in the morning, but they're going to begin that transfer process. So you're going to pack up. Usually you give all your stuff away to all of your boys because a week prior to this date, they would have called you to R&D to actually pack all of your stuff out. That's when you know your transfer is officially coming. Now, no guard can tell you when this will be, but you have an idea. You know that all the new buses come every other Thursday. You know, every other Thursday, for example, at the prison you may be at, that's when a bus comes, right? For other prisons, it could be a Monday, it could be a Wednesday. It's different depending on all the different routes. But you know when the new bus comes, and you know when the bus leaves. Because if a bus is dropping people off on Thursday, you know they're going to stay there, and then you are going to leave on a Friday. So you got called down to R&D, you gave your stuff away that you didn't pack and get sent to the next institution, and you're getting called down to R&D. You're going to sit in a holding tank, and you're going to see more and more people come. While you're in there for a bit, you're also going to see some people that were in solitary, that were in the shoe. Some of these people you might recognize, and for all you know, they could be going to the same prison that you're going to, and you know why they went to solitary. So that's why it gets kind of dangerous, right? You're all in this room, and this person checked in because he thought he wasn't safe for the yard anymore, and now you're back with the people that you ran away from. So you're going to sit in there for many, many hours. Eventually, they're going to feed you breakfast, which maybe might be oatmeal or whatever it is that day. It's usually a smaller version of what they serve everybody else for breakfast. You're essentially in a giant bowl tank, a giant room with all these other guys. If you got to use the bathroom, you got to do it with all the other guys around. That's just part of what prison is about. But eventually, they're going to start calling up names. And when they call your name, you have to repeat your data number, your registration number, Booker 267720047. The last 3 digits always correspond with the federal district that you were sentenced in. So typically you can look at someone's registration number and know exactly where they're from. As soon as you go back into this room, they're going to strip you out, right? They do the same strip out process constantly over and over and over again. You take off all your clothes, lift your arms, they check underneath, your armpits, they have you lift down your head, look behind your ears, inside your ears, then they tell you to lift up your balls, they kind of look around there, lift up your feet, see the bottom of your feet, turn around, squat, spread your cheeks, and cough. I used to say that I was stripped out so much that the guards could probably count how many rings I had in my asshole. I know that's kind of graphic, but that's how often they literally tell you spread your cheeks and cough, spread your cheeks and cough. Like, you just get so used to it, you're desensitized. It's not even uncomfortable getting naked in front of these people anymore because you just have done it so much. Once they do the strip search, they're going to put you in the clothing that they use for transportation. This is typically a van style shoe, which is just blue fabric and then a white sole and then khaki pants with an elastic waistband and then a white shirt. It may fit you, it may not fit you. All these clothes are used over and over and over again. They're going to give you a pair of drawers, a pair of boxers that are just disgusting and way too many guys have worn. But hey, what are you going to do? You can't make a decision here. So they change you out, you go back into the holding tank. And now you got to wait many more hours because you're waiting for the bus to arrive. Once the bus arrives, the US Marshals are going to get out of the bus, or it's going to be guards. It just depends where you're out and what the route is. Once they arrive, they're going to start putting on all the chains, so they call people off again. They're going to be like, Booker, yep, Booker, registration number 267720047. There's going to be 2 guards, 2 US Marshals in there, and one's going to put on the ankle chains, the ankle restraints, while the other essentially is going to put a chain around your waist, tell you to turn around, put handcuffs through that chain, and then attach your handcuffs to that chain. If you've been a bad boy and you've caused problems in the past during transportation, they're going to put on a black box. You don't want the black box because it removes all mobility between your wrists. It's extremely uncomfortable. It cuts into your wrists. And you have to wear this for hours and hours and hours because it might be a 5-6 hour bus ride, then a plane, then this. So it's very uncomfortable. And some things that guys will do is they'll try to get a pair of socks when they're going to the clothing bins that are extra long. Because if you get socks that are extra long, you can kind of fold them over and then you could put the ankle restraints kind of sitting on top of the socks. That way, when you're walking, it's not cutting like deep into your heel. This is a process I've done time and time again, and I did it when I was at Leavenworth when I was headed to FTC Oklahoma for the very first time. So you're gonna be on the bus. They do have a bathroom in the back of the bus, but the bus is moving. You got chains around your ankles, you got this chain around your waist, and you're handcuffed. It's extremely hard. If you have to take a shit, like, dude, you might be screwed. I don't know anybody who's had the audacity to do that, especially because when guys are peeing and the bus is moving, you're kind of peeing all over the place. They do feed you when you're on transport such as this, like you're on the bus or you're in the van, but it's typically crackers that are like 2 or 3 years old and they're super stale, maybe a piece of bread, peanut butter packet, jelly packet, an apple, maybe some bologna or something like that. I typically don't eat during transits, and I've learned this the hard way because if I drink too much, then I'm having to pee constantly, and you can't pee on the plane. They don't allow that at all. When you're on the bus, it's very uncomfortable, and if you have to go number 2, like I said, it's damn near impossible because you're either going to take a shit in a room with 100, 200 men, right? Or you're going to hold it in and it's going to hurt extremely bad. So I typically try not to eat. Once you arrive at FTC Oklahoma, there's usually 2 routes that are about to occur, right? People either arrive there by bus or they arrive there from plane. I've come in both ways, just depending on where I was headed and the route that I was going. Usually, as you pull up, you're either going to go directly to FTC Oklahoma, you're going to go into that building, or they're going to say you're going to Grady County. Shady Grady was the nickname that they gave for this facility. There were some pros because they allowed you to order commissary there, which you really couldn't do at FTC Oklahoma. They have their own little economy and rules there. But at at Grady County, you are allowed to order commissary. They would have tablets, guys can get ice cream, but it's extremely dirty. It's all open dormitory. People are often very sick there. So it's just something I would want to avoid. And besides, if you're getting sent to Shady Grady, that means that, FTC Oklahoma is overflowing in population. So they need to send you to that overflow jail. Or it means your stay might be extended. Because for me, the longest I've ever been at FTC Oklahoma was maybe 2 weeks. Some guys are there for as long as 90 days. But if you're pulling up on the plane or if you're pulling up on the bus, everybody's thinking, am I going to Shady Grady or I'm going to FTC Oklahoma? So I'm going to share this example now from the plane perspective because it was a lot different than when you arrive in bus. When you arrive in bus, you're pulling up and then, you pretty much enter the facility, and it's a lot different feeling than when you arrive by plane. When you arrive by plane, everybody starts to get off because they put you in seating based on your name and registration number because they're keeping everything alphabetical. As you get off of the plane, once again, they're asking for your name and your registration number. As soon as you get off the plane, because the plane is connected to the building, right? It pulls up straight to the building and you go straight into it. There's a long hallway, super, super long. I'm pretty bad at distance, but it has to be almost as long as like half of a football field or something. And on this hallway is a long bench. So they send you all the way down to the end and everybody's just lining up on the bench all the way to the back. Once they have everybody there, because everybody's single file sitting on this bench, they're keeping a tight program. If you're talking, they're running up to you and say, shut up, be quiet. Right? If you're giving them a hard time, they will have no problem grabbing you, throwing you on the ground, and maybe giving you a little beat down, right? They are keeping everything tight. They are running a tight shift. Once they have everybody lined up, this is when you start hearing all the chains just hitting the ground. Because right in front of the very first person in the line is something that I would, refer to as like a pyramid, right? So you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's about 5 people that could be on this pyramid. And then there would probably be about 10 US Marshals. So 5 on this side, 5 on this side. And they would have 5 guys walk up onto it at a time. Maybe the US Marshals on the left are taking off your ankle restraints. And then as they're taking off your ankle restraints, they say, turn around. And then the other guard is taking off your handcuffs or the black box from the chain that's around your waist. And then they're dropping it into bins. And you're just hearing it go. As soon as you step off, they're asking you again, What is your name? What is your registration number? Booker 267722047. Now here's the interesting thing about FTC Oklahoma is they actually keep damn near all the custody levels together. It doesn't matter if you're max security, high security. I would be, on the plane, maybe I'm low security at this point in time, and I'm with the guy that we just picked up from ADX, the Supermax in Colorado, right? So it doesn't matter. They just put everybody together, but they do separate people very well because in the federal prison system, there are certain gangs, there are certain groups that just do not get along with one another. And if they see each other, it's just on site, like maybe the Sureños and the Norteños. Like there's a lot of different groups like that. And all the different yards have different politics. I've seen yards at certain points in time where the Paisas didn't get along with the Sureños. So as you're walking up to the guard who works at FTC Oklahoma, he may send you to a separate bullpen, right? Because when you're on the bus, it's a little bit different. When the bus pulls up, they're literally naming off gangs. They're saying, if you're in this gang, stand up. Are you in Irish Mafia? Are you this? Are you this? Are you this? And as people name things, people get off and they separate them. But here, they already have files on damn near everybody, so they pretty much might ask you a few questions and then, separate you. But most people just go to general population. Some people, they go straight to solitary. It's just different for everybody, and they run a tight shift. So if you're going to general population, you're going to go into this giant bull tank. And there's going to be 150, 200 people in this room. Some people are already using the bathroom, and typically how they do that is they find a buddy to kind of stand guard because you're kind of in a vulnerable position when you're sitting on the toilet. So somebody's kind of like keeping point. Other people, they just don't care and they just take a number two. They just use the bathroom right there and they don't really have security. Everybody runs a different program, right? Some people that are there are literally going from one camp to another camp. They're going from a low to the camp. They are fresh in the system. They're going from medium to low. Not everybody's on that kind of time. So it just depends on the individual. But people are also, choosing who they want to be as their cellie because you kind of have a rough idea like, oh, I know we're going to go to the same unit, right? And it's also kind of funny because there'd be situations where somebody portrays themselves as a certain type of way and you're kind of seeing, who they're running up on to be like, hey, I need you to be my cellie. I need you to be my cellie. Like just full transparency, a lot of transgenders are very popular in there, right? And if you're on a plane with a transgender, there's already going to be some person who's going to like cling up right next to him. They're going to run up to him. Let's be cellies. Let's be cellies. Let's be cellies. Because he's looking at this as like, a free pass, a vacation item. I'm in transit. None of my boys will know, blah, 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 whatever it might be. So you're going to sit in this holding tank and it's probably going to be many more hours. They're going to feed you again. But once again, I don't like to eat in these holding tanks because it's just been a long day. You've been in transit for many, many, many hours. And I just kind of want to get to the cell and lay my ass down. You are going to go to all these different rooms once they start calling your names again. First, you're going to go to medical. They might be doing the TB test. They're going to ask you if you have any medications. Do you have any food allergies? Because if you have a special meal plan, they're going to make sure you're on that plan. Then you're going to go to what they call SIS, which is like the prison Gestapo. They're going to sit across from you and ask you, hey, can you be on this yard? Can you go to general population? This is kind of like a disclaimer. If you say yes, then guess what? If you get hurt, it is not on them. Then you continue to get your mugshot taken again, you get an ID card, and you finally make it to the final holding tank. At the final holding tank, they start taking people to all the different units. They'll first strip you out again, right? So they're gonna have you squat, cough, lift your balls, behind the ears, that whole thing, throw the bus clothing off and get in to the uniform of the institution. Then they will hand you your bedroll, which has your hygiene, and you start going to the different units. What I do like about FTC Oklahoma is they do allow you to choose your cellie, which is comfortable because you don't know these people. You don't know who you might have beef with. You don't know who might try to attack you. You haven't talked to your family maybe in weeks or months, depending on how long this journey has taken you. So you get to the unit and typically, they're on lockdown. You've been traveling all day. It's damn near midnight or 1 a.m. You got woken up the previous day at midnight. You've been up for 24 hours. Like you are just ready to crash out. So you're at FTC Oklahoma. Once again, they run kind of a different program there. Most of the guys are pretty cool, but there is a lot of trading going on. There is some politics, there is some bullshit, but most people aren't there for a very long time. Now, while you are here, some people try to go to the counselor and be like, hey, where am I designated? Where am I going? And this is sometimes more important for people that were in solitary and they definitely don't know where they are going, because it is bureau policy that they're not supposed to tell you. Even if you dropped in custody and you asked to be sent to a certain facility, they may never tell you. But a lot of counselors are cool enough that once you get designated, they will tell you, right? Someone along the line will tell you. You don't necessarily know when you're going to leave, but just like I told you, when you're at an institution and you know the days that the bus arrives, you know that the days the bus leave, you get a good idea of when is the West Coast route. Like, when are they going to Victorville? When do they go out to the East Coast? When are they going to Atlanta, right? And based on these movements, you kind of have a rough idea. You're like, okay, I'm going to the West Coast, right? I know I'm going to be going to Victorville. That plane leaves every Tuesday. I arrived on a Friday, right? Because I transferred out of my previous institution on a Thursday. That means that I'm going to be here Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then Monday night at midnight at 11 p.m., they're going to wake me up again. Maybe earlier than that, just depends, later than that. And you're going to go through that process all over again. Now, the reason they call it diesel therapy is because a transit is never a fast process. You never know how long you're going to be at a certain facility. When I left Mendota in California, for example, I took a bus to Victorville. I was there for about 5 weeks. Then I went to Oklahoma. I was there for about a week. Then I went to MDC Chicago. I was there for like 3 weeks. So when you're going through this process, oftentimes you're not really talking to your family because your money doesn't always follow you onto your books. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you got to call your family, collect. You're not always going to have access to stamps and letters. So you're kind of just in this process where you're super uncomfortable, right? They're waking you up at crazy times. You're sitting in the bull tank. You got chains on all day. And you're jumping on a bus or a plane. And then you arrive at another facility and you're getting stripped out and you're not eating right. And maybe you're maintaining your workout routine. Maybe you're not. Communication with your family is super inconsistent. You might not even know where they're sending you. So that's why a lot of prisoners, a lot of inmates call it diesel therapy. That's a brief snapshot of federal transfers and FTC Oklahoma. I definitely can go into this topic in a lot more depth. But this is the first video on the channel. So if you like this video, please show your support, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.